My name is Lori, and I am here representing the Prairie Renaissance Cultural Alliance in Morris, Minnesota. Tonight, we are so pleased to have Bradley Hall here, who has a lovely new exhibit, some printmaking, that he then hand watercolors. So without further ado, let's welcome Brad from Granite Falls.
Hi, I'm Brad Hall. I do printmaking and watercolors. I've done this about, oh Lord, 20 years. I was one of the first artists on Meander. I carved the first brochure artwork. We do a new artwork every year for Meander. And I carved that block for that. And I didn't know what I was doing at all. But now it's been 20 years, and after 300-400 blocks, you start getting better at it. So here's a block right here. It's a little piece of linoleum glued on to MDF. It's like a wood block, but just linoleum is a little bit easier to carve. So I carve with these little tiny carving tools, little wood carving tools, and I carve out the white and leave the black. So it's the opposite of drawing. I mean, negative space, carving, taking away the white, leaving the dark. I kind of cheat. I draw on here with the magic marker. So then I just carve away the white, but then I don't go exactly. I kind of embellish it and have some fun while I'm carving. So you can see here, this is a watercolor print. So it's a mirror image and negative space. So you print with a dark ink. It's a dark brown ink. It's not black. It's just slightly, not, I don't like that really dark black, but just a little bit brown to take off that bite of the really dark. Kind of gives it an antique look. So when the dark brown ink dries and I watercolor them, this takes the ink 24 hours to dry. Then I watercolor each one of them. So each one comes out different. And then I make the frames myself out of barnwood. My sister was burning down her chicken coop. I said, wait a minute. She's a pyromaniac. But so now that was 10 buildings ago. Every year we tear down a shed and make frames out of it. So sometimes I spruce it up. I put some new paint on it to make it a little bit better. So yeah, so I got these here, but with letterpress. So, oh, thank you. So when I print right here, this is a sample letterpress. You put the block in the block like I had. You lock that in the chase or paper chase. And you put ink on an ink plate. You put a little piece of paper right there. So the ink goes from the ink plate and print just like that. And it presses the letter into the paper, so it's letter press. So I've got a little tabletop model, exactly this size. I mean, exactly this design. This is just a little like a business card envelope, a little salesman sample press. My brother got this on eBay. I don't know how much he paid for it. Really nice Christmas present. So then I do a calendar every year, and all the ones this size, I print on my little tabletop press. That's more like a greeting size card. So then after the ink dries on that, I watercolor them. But I also do a calendar every year. And with the calendar, I do the more traditional printmaking method. I carve 2 blocks for every month. So I do a accent color. And I kind of think of it like a watercolor wash. I mean, I actually carved the master block first. So I have that black and white as a guide. And then after I have the guide, I'll just take some samples and kind of wash in a little bit of color and decide how I want to leave the white of the paper. So it looks like it's 3 color, but it's actually just 2. Yeah, the white of the paper, accent color, and the black. So my buddy Andy at A to Z Letterpress, make sure you go visit it, downtown Montevideo. So he prints the calendar for me. We have a business partnership. I carve all the blocks, then he prints the calendar. He also has naughty greeting cards there if you want to go. So it's the Bad Andy greeting card. So sometimes he has cute little grandkids selling them, and you can't help yourself. All right. And that's, I kind of started out about 30 years ago doing Christmas cards. I did greeting cards. I did a pen and ink drawing, ran them through the Xerox machine, if you remember what that is. And then I hand watercolored each one. So I met Andy about 20 years ago, and he's like, "You ever carved a block?" He goes, "No, I'll try one." And just my style of hand drawing. So I do a pen and ink drawing, I transfer it onto the block, and then I print the block. So it ended up really nice going with my style, you know. So yeah, everything kind of snowballed. I don't know. With my sister not burning down her chicken coop, making brains out of them, and meeting Andy and starting to do printmaking, and I think my first love is watercolor. I've always loved doing watercolor. I've kind of got away from that. I don't want to get too much into printmaking, but it's a battle, I guess. I don't know. So,
Can you tell us a little bit about your subject matter? Like, how do you choose? I see a lot of barns and a lot of farm things, like you see horses and tractors and.
I grew up here in Granite Falls. I moved to Chicago and worked in factories for 20 years, and I couldn't wait to get back outside. 20 years of being cooped up inside, which is crazy. I got hay fever. I'm allergic to outside. But I just love, we do about half a dozen art shows during the year. And everyone's like, "Oh, you grew up in a farm." Nope. This is just the country out here. I love the land. I love this open sky. I love just like being outside. Anything old and broken down, I fall in love with. And you just drive by an old barn and like, oh my God. My lovely wife, Amanda, has to keep buckled up because I'll slam on the brakes. Look at that barn. It's better to be self-aware. I could stop at any time.
So when you see the barn, do you take a photo or do you?
Yep.
Nodding.
I
Yeah,
sketch
you
a lot.
don't need the house without a camera.
Yeah, I sketch a lot from photos. I kind of got into more using the phone now, which is, I mean, the phone takes a better picture than my camera. I had a really fancy, $1,000 camera, and heck, my phone takes a better picture than that. So, yeah.
And it's on you, so makes it easy.
And sometimes the more you create, I used to copy photos exactly when I first started out. The more you do it, the more you create more things, the looser you get. And I make one thing, I'm like, oh, that kind of reminds me of this thing. So then you kind of build on it. You start making more stuff. You get looser, and I hope I get looser and. You know, Phyllis says that she doesn't draw, says. But it just, your stuff is so loose and fun and creative and. You know, I try to do that more. Cause I wanna be tight and I wanna draw it exactly and. No one's gonna look at one of these and say, oh my God, that's not how that barn looked. No one's gonna know that barn, what it looks like, so. Kind of creating art, you gotta just gotta have fun.
So you have a lot of them that are the same size, Brad. Is that a reflection of press you have, or do you like, working in the smaller sizes more? I mean, you got a couple of really big ones, but you've got a lot that are similar.
Oh, yeah, the one side, I got all the same size, cause that's my calendar size. Yeah, so I do 12 images every year, and they're all the same size, and then I watercolor a set, yeah. I'm trying to get into bigger stuff. That's the one big problem. That's a good question, actually. Because, this is the biggest you can go in letterpress, is this right here. So you are limited by size. I started going to Grand Marais every year. They have a giant Koch press. It's like it's not letterpress. It's a giant table and the whole table moves and you got a big ship's wheel and you have to, the big cylinder presses onto the block. You lay the block on the table, then the whole thing, the cylinder moves across the table. I have to go to Grand Marais once a year, darn.
Yeah.
I was looking at different places to print big oversized blocks and they have a couple places in Minneapolis, High Point and but it's like $500 for the day to rent the printing presses. So I looked online and Grand Marais was $500 for the week and they give you a place to stay, so. Usually it's $500 at night to spend in Grand Marais, so
Sure.
that's a good deal. All right. What
Any
else?
other questions that folks have out here in person or online?
I use water-based, are you water-based ink?
No, oil-based ink. You know, oil and water don't mix.
Oh,
So yeah, I let the oil-based ink dry and then a watercolor on top of it. Yeah.
So have you been watercoloring for a while before you started?
I have.
Okay.
Yep, I started out doing watercolors. Well, the ink drawings, the Christmas card, the ink drawing and the watercolor on top there. I do separate watercolors too, though.
And I had asked before, whether you watercolor them, like, I don't know what your editions are, I read some of them, I can't remember, I'm like, wow, that's like, some of them are like 50.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, wow.
I don't do them all at the same time. I'll set up a little assembly line and I can do, I don't know, 5 or 10 an hour, I think. It's hard to know how many I do because you lose time when you're doing it. You know? It's just, you start painting and it's time for lunch. Oh, goodness.
What is your typical edition, you think?
Usually 50 for the smaller ones and a lot less for the bigger ones. The bigger ones are hard to schlep around and print, and no one wants them. I mean, they're lovely, but they don't have the wall space for something like that. Everybody has a wall space for something like that. So this sells a lot more than the larger ones. But I worm their way into their place by getting a couple of little ones. Then later I'll get them with the big. So. Yeah, so This one here, that's the first one, the largest one I ever. I looked everywhere. I got the biggest block I could possibly get. And had to find the biggest printing press I possibly could. I was just so excited to do a giant oversized block. I'm like, I don't know if I'll sell any. And there was a smaller block in one of the calendars a couple of years ago. I'm like, oh, this would really look nice larger. And that's the one I first went up to Grand Marais and printed the bigger block. So it's kind of a test piece, and that one turned out really well, I think. And now I got plans to do a whole set of them and go up there. I signed up for March to go up there. I'm having a problem finding really big oversized blocks. So they have, I'm doing research in the Japanese plywood. China blocks, found them on McLean's. And I'm hoping that you can carve those just like linoleum. I think they're a little bit harder, but Japanese plywood is perfectly flat and it's doesn't chip. I don't know. I'm gonna give it a shot and we're gonna see. So that's my next adventure. All right, what else?
How do you decide on your color palette? Like, do you know that while you're doing the block, do you already have a vision in mind of what the final?
I have some colors. I love the earth tones. I love greens and yellow ochre and burnt sienna. Burnt sienna or the brown. I go through tubes and tubes of that. I keep using it over and over. It's the personal preference and the ones that sometimes I try to do the actual color of the photos, but it usually ends up going over to more what I like. Sometimes I completely change them. It's artistic. My artistic license is I'm at a lexical.
So when you say you change them, so you're doing 50, is your intent that all 50 will be essentially the same, or is it like, no, I'm gonna, do some different color palettes along the way?
It depends. Well, the tone might be different. Sometimes the colors change. If I was to paint every single one of these differently, they wouldn't be $45. They'd be $100, $300 each. It'd be an original watercolor for each one I'm doing. So, yeah, they tend to come out kind of the same. I mean, I usually paint a handful just to get going, to find out, looking at the photo, find out where I like them. I didn't bring the ducks. I had a ducks. I did some wood ducks. I just have to get that on. I think it's on Facebook. But I'll paint a set of them and set them aside. Paint a set of them and set them aside. These wood ducks, I could not get them for the life of me. I painted it, hated the color, hated the composition. Nothing was melding together. Finally, and so this one kept getting shoved to the back of the pile for like 3 years. Finally, I got down to the bottom of the stack one day and I'm like, oh, and I just threw in some colors, put wet on wet, let it start blending. It came out beautifully. And colors that I never thought of. So it's just artistic license, yeah, trying different things, hopefully growing as an artist. So yeah, you won't see much purple. Don't know like purple much. Although I had a class with Andy Evenson, he had a violet in the skies, or he had the violet in a little touch of everything, I'm like, whoa. I'm trying to use it, and I kind of incorporate some, but. Eh.
Do you have a favorite?
I think the ducks, I should have brought the ducks, dang it. They were- For this year, every year is different. For this year, for the ones I painted for the calendar. I think Forgotten Barn, I absolutely. That was the first one I carved last year. And it's it's like an old Norwegian barn up by Taunton. And I happened upon it and I could not. I hadn't been working, sometimes I'll work. I don't always work every day on art, I'll work every day for months and then I'm doing framing or something else or. And I had been not carving for a while and I struggled with that and struggled with that and struggled with that. And after like the sixth variation of it, finally I'm like, oh my God. And then it just painted itself. It was like, what? After struggling so hard with carving it and laying it out, sometimes the painting it paints itself. It's like I threw in some sky, put in a little color in the barn, burnt my favorite, burnt sienna in the trees. It was done. I don't know. It comes with doing it a lot. I think that's everything came together. And definitely no one, I don't know, I haven't sold these a lot, but I love the fish.
That one's sold, Brad.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah.
This one was oh, oh, he did? Well, it's the contrast, that black ink with that contrast is such a great composition. That's one of the strengths of printmaking, that big black ink contrast of, and then I struggled a little bit with the color too, but just got loose and started throwing in some color and the colors just really popped with that. The colors pop and the black contrast. Also with the cactus flower, that black background, that contrast. Sometimes I'll use the contrast with color, with paint, and sometimes it's with ink. And I think, I don't know, you couldn't actually see the teeth of the northern pike when I had them in there. Because northern pikes are mean. They have little teeth, you know? I don't know. I don't know if that one's gonna sell. I just love that one. But
that brings up a question, so if someone sees a frame, in this case, it's already sold, you have other.
I do.
Yes.
I do. You go on the website, bradleyhallgallery.com. Plug it. What's that? I am absolutely horrible at commission. No. I got an idea in my head and the customer has the idea in their head and you have to try it, mesh it. And then I worry it's this is not gonna be good enough. Oh, and so I'll do it over 10 times and it's never good enough. And the customer's like, what the hell are you doing? So, no. Actually, and I'm like 2 years out on stuff that I wanna do, so it's, yeah, I don't have any problem with work to do, so.
What kind of stuff are you looking to do on the future?
Big stuff. I want to do as big as I possibly can, 36 by 15. A great big panorama. I might do one long, portrait also. There's like 2 or 3 panoramas I wanna do. And a set of 9x12. I only have that one. But this is a real nice size. I got a set of 9x12s I wanna do too. And I can go see my buddy Andy and he can print those for me. Yeah. Yeah, this is a real good deal, $135 for this size. So if this is the original watercolor, this would be $300, come on.
It's already sold, Brad.
Also available on my website.
Are there any other questions that anyone, Mr. Brad? Otherwise, we'll let you get back to snacks and talking with Brad one-on-one. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing about your artwork and process. And we're so glad to have your exhibit here up through the beginning of March. So stop on in and see it in person. Thank you.
Thank you.